School Prep Room, saving you both time and money. Hello and welcome to School Prep Room. Today I'm going to show you how School Prep Room can make setting up and managing hazards around the lab and prep room more simple. We'll look at both the in-house functions as well as the CLEAPSS integration we've been able to include. Now, in order to do this, you'll need to have registered for School Prep Room at schoolpreproom.co.uk and have set up your school on our system. In order to access the CLEAPSS information, you'll need to have a valid login for CLEAPSS already set up. The first thing I'd like to show you is how to set up hazard information for items in your stock. So when you first log into School Prep Room, you should see a screen something like this. We can get to the stock information by clicking on Stock Room and then on Manage Stock underneath. We'll then be presented with a page that shows all the items that we have in stock for our school. Now, we can find out information about any of these items by clicking on them. As you can see, this school already has a large number of items stored on the system, and if we click on 1-chlorobutane here, we'll see a small window will pop up with information about 1-chlorobutane that we've already added to the system, including its name, some alternative names, what it is, how much we have, etc. You'll notice also we have a CLEAPSS hazard card code here, and if we click on this hazard card code, it will take us directly to the CLEAPSS information online. That's of course assuming that we have a login for it. Underneath the hazard card link is information about the hazards for this compound, and they have been entered manually into the system. So let's see how a new chemical can be added to the database. In order to add something to the database, we need to click on the New Item button on the top left hand side, and we're presented then with a form to fill in. So in this case, I'm going to imagine I've ordered some toluene, and we have an alternative name for toluene, which I'm going to add there. I could add a number of different names there if I wanted to. It's a chemical, so I'm going to leave that as chemical, and I'm going to imagine that I have 100 mils of toluene. The location is just going to be in the store, and I have an option now to click the limited stock button. The limited stock allows me to stop something being overbooked. In this case, it's not going to be a problem, so I'm going to leave that unchecked. But if you want to find out more about that, I suggest you watch our video on how to avoid overbooking of equipment. We now asked for a CLEAPSS hazard card. Now, I could go to the hazard card database and look it up, but we can also here click on Suggest, and the system will automatically go and check the hazard card database for something that it thinks fits. It's going to use both the name at the top and the alternative names. It won't be unusual to see perhaps 2 or even 3 items shown here, depending on the information we've added at the top. This is because, of course, some compounds may contain parts of the names above in their full name. I can click on each of these then to check which of the 2 is most appropriate. So 44A is showing a halogenoalkane, and 46A is showing aromatic hydrocarbons. 46A is most appropriate for our toluene. So I'm going to add that hazard card information in here. It's important that we enter the full hazard card code as shown underneath, otherwise the system won't be able to recognize it later. Now I have some options to add the hazards manually underneath. If I do this, then when I ask for hazard information later from the system, this information will also be presented as well as the HAZ card. So I'm going to set this as flammable, harmful, and irritant. We have the option to add pack test information here. Of course, toluene isn't an electrical item, and so we don't need to pack test it, so I'm just going to leave that blank. We can also add supplier information in case we want to store that for future reference. Once I'm happy I've entered all the information I need, I can then click on Update, and that item will be added to the system. I can go through a similar process if I want to add something that isn't a chemical, of course. So for example, Bunsen burners. Now this isn't a chemical, so I'm going to choose a different designation for it, in this case an instrument, and I'm going to pretend I have 40 Bunsen burners, and I'm just going to call it units in this case. The location is going to be in lab E45, and again I'm not going to click limited stock. I've got 40 Bunsens. I have enough Bunsens for all the labs to be using Bunsens at the same time under normal circumstances. Now of course I'm not going to ask for CLEAPSS HAZ card information here because it's not relevant for a Bunsen burner. But a Bunsen burner could still be dangerous, and I could add some hazard information here. So I'm going to say may be hot after use. Students should tie back long hair. Heat-proof mats should be used. Again, pack test information isn't appropriate for Bunsen burners, and I'm not going to bother adding our supplier information at this point. So now I can click Update and add that to our system. We can now see by searching that toluene is in our system, and also Bunsen burners. You'll notice that in this case I haven't searched for the full title Bunsen burners, just Bunsen would be sufficient to give us a hit. All of our hazard information has been added there, and we can view it quite easily. So we've set up some health and safety information for stock that we hold. I want to now show you how that information can be used when booking a practical. First of all, I'm going to show you how that works when setting up a stored practical. In order to set up a stored practical, we need to click on Manage Practicals at the top, and then select Add Practicals from that list. When we add a practical, we need to choose a topic that it's going to fall under, so in this case chemistry, and a name for our practical. In this case, measuring boiling points. Now there are a lot of functions here that I'm not going to talk about, such as adding files. This is because I really want to focus on the health and safety aspects and the health and safety integration. If you want to find out more about those, please watch our videos on setting up stored practicals and on managing clashes of equipment. I then need to add the equipment required for this practical. I've already copied it across just to make it a little easier. And you can see what I've said is that this is for 10 sets, and then I've put in the information that's required, so Bunsen burners, toluene, etc. Now I want to add some information about the health and safety for this practical. Now I could simply click on health and safety information at the bottom and type in all the relevant health and safety information. But because I've stored information about using Bunsen burners and the hazards around toluene, I can ask the system to suggest health and safety information by clicking on the Suggest H&S button. The system will then go and look at the words that I've typed in and choose things that it thinks is relevant. Now be aware, this is really just based on word and phrase matching. So it's very important that you ensure that the health and safety information that appears is correct and accurate for your practical. For example, if I'd added something here that wasn't in the CLEAPSS database and wasn't in our store catalogue, then health and safety information wouldn't appear here at all. So it's very important that that is checked. You can see though that it works very well. It's pulled across the health and safety considerations for using Bunsen burners and the safety information for toluene, ethanol and acetone. You can see at the bottom though it's also picked out quick fit distillation. This is because it's matched the word quick fit to the word quick fit I typed in for the reflux kits. And that isn't really relevant for our health and safety here, so I'm going to remove that. Here we've just considered the elements that are present, we haven't considered what's being done, and I might want to add some more information around that. So for example, saying that the practical should be done in a few months. I've really only put a limited amount of health and safety information here. If we were doing this completely, we'd be putting a lot more detail in. Don't forget as well, if we want to check any of the health and safety information, we can click on the HazCard links at the top and go to CLEAPSS, assuming of course that you have a subscription to CLEAPSS already set up. Once I've completed that and I'm happy with it, I can click on Add Practical, which will then add this practical to our stored practicals on the system, and I'll get a message back confirming that that has happened. So we've added that booking to the system. I've also taken a few minutes to add a booking of the stored practical that we just generated, just to demonstrate how we can then view this health and safety information further downstream. If we click on the full week bookings for next week using the top right button there, we should be able to see both the practicals that we've booked. So you can see here that measuring the boiling points, which is the stored practical we added, and the ethanol sodium chloride practical just a little further down. Now here we're just seeing a list of the equipment that's needed. If you want detailed information, then we need to right click on the practical we're interested in and select details by left clicking. And then we see the full details for that practical, including when it's booked for, who's booked it, and when the booking was actually made. We can see the items that were requested, and then further down we can see the safety information. And you can see all the safety information that we added has appeared here, including hyperlinks to the HazCards, which we can click on to see that HazCard information from CLEAPSS if we have a subscription to CLEAPSS. Now if we want to hand this information out with the practical itself, we can click on Print at the bottom, and the system will then generate a page that's easy to print out all of the information for that particular practical. I can now click Print, and that will run out on our printer here, and I can hand that out to the class when it's running. I can do a similar thing with our ethanol sodium chloride practical, clicking on details, and once again we get all the information about that booking straight in front of us. So that's about it on how to use the hazard functions and health and safety functions in School Prep Room. If you've got any questions about it, do feel free to contact us, or any suggestions. We're really open to hear about things like that. But please remember that Just because the information's on the screen doesn't mean that you've read that information, and just reading that information won't keep you and the class safe unless you use it. So please experiment safely, and I hope School Prep Room will help you in doing that. Thank you.